All right, we're here with Pedro Vela from the Revs Institute, Naples, Florida. Pedro, can you talk about the institute itself?
Yeah, good morning. So, my name is Pedro. I'm from the Revs Institute, which houses the Miles Collier collection. We're located in Naples, Florida. So Revs Institute is a nonprofit organization that was built to house the Miles Collier collection, automobiles, and also we have archives, memorabilia, literature of, from the beginning of the automobile up until present time. So it's something that's open to the public. You're more than welcome to come visit. You can actually do a reservation in the library as well if you want to do research on any kind of automobile. And we're more than welcome, to help anybody.
How many cars do you have in the museum?
So the collection, give or take, consists of about 120 cars, depending on what's on loan, what's out, being displayed at different parts of the world. And the cars, what's interesting about the museum is that all the cars get driven at least once a year. That's kind of our motto. And if not, we take them to events, different parts all over the world, and showcase them, and share them with the people, which is what it's all about, the automotive passion. So that's what brought us here this time for the wonderful reunion of Eagles. And this time we brought two from our collection. The first one, which is the blue car over there, that's chassis 74004. It's a Jorgensen Eagle that ran at the Indy 500 in 1975, and it actually won with Bobby Unser. So it's a pretty historical car. That's part of the collection. And then our main feature is the car we're standing next to. This is a 1967 Gurney Eagle MK1. This car is pretty special. So Gurney built, all our All-American racers built 4 of these, 3 out of aluminum, and then this one, which is made out of titanium and magnesium exotic alloys, which is pretty special. Very light. Yeah, the car weighs right over 1,200 pounds. It's a pretty light car. Now this particular car is pretty special, apart from being made out of exotic materials. It's been the only time where a constructor, being Dan Gurney, got in the car racing himself and won a Formula One race. So it's been pretty, it's been the only time in history that's ever happened, and probably will ever happen again. And it also for the United States, it's a pretty symbolic automobile, because it's been the only time post-war, prior to World War, there was a Duesenberg, but post-war it's been the only American Formula One car to win a Formula One race, and the only one with an American driver, which also would probably be very unlikely, unless Haas or something like that gets an American driver and are able to accomplish something like that. So this is chassis 1004. Something interesting that you can differentiate the magnesium monocoque from aluminum is the rivet spacing. The aluminum rivet spacing, they're probably about almost an inch apart. These are just a few millimeters apart. And then this is a car that also gets driven pretty often. We just ran it at the Velocity Invitational Laguna Seca in November of last year. But it's been a good one, I think close to a dozen times. It's been driven by Brian Redmond, Derek Bell, Jackie Stewart, Martin Brundle, Mr. David Hobbs has driven the car. The car has a V12, which sounds, pretty amazing. He first started out with Climax engines until these V12 Westlake engines were built, and then he put in the 3-liter, revs up to about 11 or 1,000 RPM, so they sound magnificent. It has a mechanical fuel injection system. Yesterday was my first day. I got to experience the track a little bit, and the weather was nice, so I got to drive around and visit. It's an amazing, beautiful track. It has the old school feel where you can tell the track is going somewhere, similar to Spa, which is where this car won. So talking about the history of this car, and it was actually at Spa when Dan Gurney won the 1967 Grand Prix. So that's been the only time an American driver won with an American car. I know yesterday one of Dan Jr. was here, and he got in the car, got to sit in it a little bit. It was the first time he had ever sit in his father's car. And I believe Alex and Justin will be here today, so it'll be interesting to hear their thoughts and kind of their emotions standing next to their car that their father raced. We're located in Naples, Florida. It's open to the public 3 days a week. You just have to go online, make a reservation. It's revsinstitute.org. And or like I said, if you're doing any type of automotive restoration or research, we're open to the public for that. We have endless amounts of workshop manuals, technical specifications, any type of information like that.
Phil Gumpert from Indianapolis. He brought his 1969 Olsonite Eagle by Dan Gurney. Can you tell us about the car?
Well, it's a, as I said, 1969. It was one of 4 cars that Dan Gurney brought to the track in '69, called the Santa Ana Eagles. Tony Southgate was a designer who later designed some Formula One cars, early designer of these cars. And this car ran with a turbo offie in '69. Gurney practiced in the car, but the car didn't race. He didn't have a fourth driver for the car, and so this is serial number 702. So they were 7, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 01 Gurney finished second at Indy in '69. 03 I think was driven by Joe Leonard, and 04 I think was Danny Hume. So they were all very exceptional drivers for all of them. And as I say, I'm not sure where the other cars finished. I've owned this car for I think about 10 years. We've gone through the car, and it's a great running car. It's right now we're running with a Ford short block or stock block Ford.
Mainly all original?
It's mainly all original. After Indy, I had a conversation with Bill Simpson before he passed away a few years back, and he indicated he thought he had driven this car and owned it, but I can't attest to that. But then it ran as a Formula 5000 for several years, and it was out based in California, as a matter of fact. And then I'm not sure where the car went. Somebody indicated it went to Georgia. From Georgia, there was a guy out of Chicago that bought the car. And then there was a gentleman in Palm Springs, a gentleman by the name of Bob Pond, who had a hell of a collection of cars. And this was one of the cars that was in his collection. And actually, I tried to buy this car twice. First time I didn't get it done, but the second time I bought it, it was at an auction in Monterey, at the RM auction in Monterey when I bought this car. So approximately 10 years ago. And we've run it quite a few times. Ran it at Indy on the oval, run in St. Louis several times on the oval. It's a great driving car, great running car. It's just period correct, and all the decals and everything are like they were, and so it's a pretty original car.
So a gathering here at Road America of all these American Eagles, what does that mean to you?
Fantastic. It's just outstanding that we can get this many cars at one place, and this car actually, when Dan Gurney, we had a reunion for Dan about, I want to say it was 7 or 8 years ago at the Speedway, and we had all 4 of these cars at the track, and had a photo shoot with Dan and his family, and I got to visit with him. He was a very gracious gentleman and just super nice, and so this is another reunion of these cars, and just he was an innovator and certainly a hell of a driver, and just a really a nice gentleman. So it's great to have these cars, and all these fans come out today, and it's too bad that we got the showers this morning, but it'll clear off, and hopefully tomorrow we can get to run the car.
How do those pedals feel? Perfect? Good.
Mike Lashman, I'm president of Vintage Indy, and we do all the companion Vintage IndyCar events with IndyCar and other sanctioning bodies. And we've got a great collection of Dan Gurney AAR Eagles here today, approximately 30 cars covering the gamut of all of AAR's build area, more or less. We brought 4 cars up from Indianapolis. This is the 72 Olsonite Eagle driven by Bobby Unser. 72 Eagle was the pole winning car at Indianapolis in 1972, and one of the unique things about the car is that in 1972 the pole speed at Indianapolis eclipsed the previous year's pole speed, which was set by Bobby Unser, by 18 miles an hour, which is the largest jump ever, and it's never been equaled. It was also the first year for rear wings, which was allowed by the sanctioning body, United States Auto Club, and turbocharged Offenhauser engine, putting out about 1,300 horsepower into a roughly 1,500 pound wet weight car. And behind it is a 1973 Eagle, also an Olsonite Eagle, number 48. It was driven by Jerry Grant, who was a house driver for AAR, just like Bobby Unser. And in the far background is another 1972 Eagle that was driven by Mike Mosley. And it was a leader card car owned by the Wilkie family out of Milwaukee. They won the Indy 500 twice with Roger Ward and once with Bobby Unser. And Bob and Ralph Wilkie, father and son, fielded Indy cars for years at Indianapolis and have quite a history there.
Okay, bringing these type of cars here for this reunion at Road America, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means a lot to me. I knew Dan Gurney, and his son Danny and Justin are friends of mine, and I was a former IndyCar mechanic 50 years ago with two of the larger teams, that being Vels Parnelli Jones and STP Patrick Racing. And at Patrick, I worked on a lot of Eagles, including that second car, because after the Indy 500 and Jerry Grant driving that for Dan sold that car to Pat Patrick to replace Sweet Savage's car. And I was on Gordon Johncock's car that year, and Gordy ran that car in every race in '73 after Pocono. And we won Phoenix and Trenton with that car. We were on a couple of poles with that car. Started the front row of the California 500 at Ontario Motor Speedway with Pete Revson and Jerry Grant and another Olsonite Eagle. So this means a lot to me. Of all the cars I worked on in my lifetime, Eagles were my favorite car. Dan Gurney was a personal hero of mine going back to childhood and definitely my teen years. So it's an extreme privilege to be around these cars, to have spent time with them, to have gone to Victory Circle with them 50 years ago, and then to be here at Road America. I'm getting goosebumps right now just talking to you, because there's 30 incredible cars here that span the gamut of AAR. So
it's great for the public to see these
cars. It's fabulous for the public to see these cars and pay homage to Dan Gurney, who was, in my opinion, an American motorsports icon, an American icon. And you know, behind us over here, we've got the Spa-winning '67 Belgian Grand Prix car and the '75 Indy winner. We've got a lot of race-winning Eagles in here. We've got the Pepsi Challenger down there, which won the pole at Indianapolis for AAR and Dan Gurney, and it was driven by Mike Mosley, and so forth and so on. So the history that's concentrated under this tent today is absolutely phenomenal. And it's just wonderful that we can share this with the public. And that's what Vintage Indy's all about, is getting these cars out there, preserving the history, and preserving the knowledge of the history for future generations.
Oh, they're sitting here like, whoa, what are you going to do? How are you? I didn't say it like that. Super good.
My name is Jacques Drieseng. We are here at the 2022 WeatherTech International Challenge, where the featured mark is Dan Gurney's All-American Racers Eagles. I'll be introducing 3 cars that are part of our collection. I'm with Kettle Moraine Preservation and Restoration, located in Hubertus, Wisconsin. We're kind of just a family collection, and the collection that we collect is that of Dan Gurney Eagle race cars. The first car we were shown is a really rare Eagle. This is a Formula Ford, and you think, oh, a Formula Ford, that's, you know, everyone's seen them. Not many have seen this. This is one of 13. This is a 1977 Dan Gurney Eagle DGF. DGF standing for Dan Gurney Ford. This is chassis number 5. It was originally sold to Bob Tankersley of Colorado in early 1978. The car was all yellow, and Bob raced it in California first and then back in his native Colorado. It later went to another Coloradian by the name of Dirk Piz, who was later unfortunately killed in a superbike accident at Daytona in 2001, and then went to a fellow by the name of Ted Witkoff from Minnesota, who raced the car in the mid-'80s. Here at Road America, indeed, it was black and gold in color, number 48. It then went back to California. It was raced by Bob Watt, Chuck Raggio, and Bill Kincaid, and we found it for sale in 2009. We restored it for about a year and a half, and then started racing it in SECA competition on slicks. Very sticky slick tires, which was a no-no, as I found out, because I wound up crashing the car at the 2011 June Sprints when the front suspension failed. Since 2015, we've raced the car in vintage, and I've been the lucky recipient with this car. We won the 2017 and the 2021 Monoposto Cup Championship for the Club Ford category. Club Ford meaning Formula Fords ranging from 1973 to 1981. The greatest feat we've had with the car was at the 2019 Monterey reunion. We were one of 58 cars in the field, and we were one of 5 drivers not from California in the group. Qualified 11th of the 57, and fought my way back from a pre-final incident from 49th to 20th, and we were the recipients of the Rolex Award of Excellence at that race. It's a club racer. It never ran anything pro, and that's what this car was about, was bridging kids, you know, racing BMX bikes or whatever. What's the next step to get you to things down the line? Well, that's Formula Ford. Dan saw that, as did AAR. The next car is something far bigger, far greater, far more powerful. This is a 1972 All-American Racers Eagle, purchased by Roger Penske in Penske Racing in April of 1973 for driver Mark Donohue. Mark and Team Penske went to Indy in April of 1973 for a tire test for Goodyear tires and found they were 7 miles an hour off the pace of the factory Eagles. Now, Dan wasn't going to sell them a 73 Eagle, so he sold them a 72. He sold all the customers 72s up until after Indy. Mark qualified outside of the front row at 197.413 miles an hour and finished. He failed to finish. He blew a piston on lap 92 of the 133 lap race. This was Mark Donohue's final Indy car. Later, it was raced by Gary Bettenhausen. It was raced by Bill Simpson, and Simpson was the man who put a young fellow by the name of Rick Mears in this car in the September 1976 Cal 500. This was basically Rick Mears' rookie car. It only ever made one Indy 500, but it did so with Mark Donohue, who was then the reigning champion, and this was Mark's last and Rick's first. So that's the main significance of this. It's restored back to the way it qualified at Indy in '73. On race day, the yellow on the nose went down to Sunoco, and the blue actually encompassed the numbers. So this we thought it looked cooler the way it qualified, so that's how you see it today. Finally, another 72 Eagle. This is chassis 7228. This car was delivered in September of 1973 after the Commander Racing Team wrecked their 7224 Eagle, which is also present here today, at the Cal 500, basically flat walling the side of the chassis after a tire blowout. So this car went to the team with driver Lloyd Ruby, and Rube ran it throughout the 73 season and then throughout the 74 season. He was running third at Indy with 20 to go, and they ran it out of fuel. In 74, they also raced it at the Formula 5000 round at Ontario Motor Speedway in the road course, and he blew a turbo. In 75, this car and its sister car went to the Vadis Enterprises group, and Johnny Parsons Jr. raced it as the number 93 car that year. Steve Kristoloff ran it in 1976 and 77. In 1978, the car was narrowed in a very wedge-like shape, like its sister is today, and it tried to make Indy with Al LaQuasto and Gary Irvin. In '79, John Mailer tried to make it at Indy, but failed to do so, but he got a sister car in the field. In 1980, for the Copa Mexico 150 in Mexico City, Juan Carlos Bolonos drove the car. And at the final race at Ontario, Chip Meade drove this car until the first fuel stop, when his brother put in the fuel nozzle and fuel spilled everywhere. There was a pit fire, and that was the car's last race. It was actually here at Road America 1982 for the first Provimiville 200. Rick DeLordo, who from Illinois, had the car with a stock block Chevy and failed to make the grid. So the car is restored to the way it was first run in September 1973 at the Michigan race. So these are the three running Eagles that KMPR will have here this weekend. Myself and some of my good friends who are shocked that they're going to be driving these are going to be driving these during the demonstration session. And the 46 car, the Eaglet, will be in Group 4, where we will try to win the Formula Ford race. So, thank you.